Today we're having a panel discussion about creating community in conversation. We're being joined by a number of very inspiring people. We have Shaun Glossop from the Nottingham Mindfulness Group. We have Jackie and Claire from Positively Empowered Kids in the UK. Foppe Seekles from the PHA team. He's an ambassador for them, the spiritual ambassador for them. And Marilyn Turkovich, who's the CEO of Charter for Compassion. We also have Sue Cooper, our co-director with Sarah from the Feast, who's going to speak a little bit about her own personal project. The objective, as I started to say earlier, is to give everybody an opportunity to meet with people who have created their own communities, people who are really actively engaged in their communities. Some communities are more online and some are in person, some are very localized and some are on a more global scale. And it is our hope that as you hear them sharing briefly some of their experiences, it'll inspire others to either gather their own groups or to forge their own compassionate communities in their locality. As we go around, each person will have about three minutes to speak briefly about the organization that they represent. And then I have a couple of questions that are saved, which I'll direct directly at the group. And as our audience become more familiar with the various organizations that are represented here, if you do have some questions, we'd love you to put the questions into the chat, and Anne will be monitoring that, and then we can get the question to the right person, or it could be a more generic question too, of course. The duration is an hour, so we will have to start on time and finish at time, as we really respect people's willingness to come on, and your willingness, the audience from the Feast, for staying part of this conversation today. So I'm going to begin. The first person I can see in my view here is Shaun Glossop. I had the pleasure of meeting Shaun a couple of times when I was in Nottingham with Sue. I'm going to spotlight you there now, Shaun, and I'd love to give you a chance to talk a little bit about your group, Nottingham Mindfulness Group. And I know that some of what you're doing is, these weekly meetings with an emphasis on meditation and mindfulness practices. So I'm just going to remove the spotlight from me, and Shaun has just I've lost him on my vision. Did he just get popped out? Can you see him? Okay, so I won't start with Shaun because I've lost. Oh, he's back. There you are. Sorry about that. Okay, here you go. I'll spotlight you now, Shaun. Please go ahead.
And I'll lower my hand. Sorry, Susie, I probably made your life complicated by lowering my hand a moment too soon, so apologies for that. Hello, everybody. I'm Shaun Glossop, and I've been invited today just to come along and talk a little bit about the organisation that I co-founded almost 10 years ago now, and which I'm still heavily involved in running today. And that's the Nottingham Mindfulness Group. As the name implies, it's a relatively local-based group. And so it's serving principally people who live in the city of Nottingham in England. But we currently have over 4,200 members, and there's a fairly broad catchment area in terms of the kind of geographic spread of people who come along to our events and participate actively in what we do. And it has very much, over the 10 years or so that we've been running it, it has very much evolved into a community. So yeah, we really have people involved from across the kind of the central region of England, and a few people further afield. Mostly that's because they're people who in the past have lived locally to us, and they joined the group while they were living locally, and they've perhaps moved away. But because a lot of what we do, particularly today, is hybrid, And by that, I simply mean that there's an element of it that is an in-person meeting, where people physically come along and meet together in a physical location. But we also open those meetings up on Zoom, so people can participate from anywhere. And that does mean that people who perhaps for reasons of work or family commitment have had to move away, they're still able to participate. So we have a significant element of that too. And we do actually have a few people who don't really have any connection with our local area and have never lived locally, but have somehow found us, usually online, and have participated in the meetings, usually over Zoom, and are now actively involved. And that probably reflects a very central aspect of what we try to do with the group, because from day one, and it was kind of the founding principle really, it was almost the reason we set the group up in the first place. The whole idea was that we wanted it to be very open. At the time we set up the group, I had a kind of quite deep-seated concern that there was a risk of mindfulness, and we do stuff to do with meditation more broadly, but as the name of the group suggests, we're very focused on mindfulness. And I was just concerned that there was a danger of mindfulness either becoming quite clinical and medicalized and becoming quite specialized in that sense, and therefore maybe not being something that kind of an ordinary person in the street would feel terribly comfortable exploring for themselves and getting involved with. And we were also very aware that there were that the other main avenue for exploring mindfulness, which would normally be to go along to a Buddhist center or a Buddhist group, that there were a lot of people who were interested in principle in mindfulness and very interested in its potential benefits, but perhaps weren't completely comfortable with getting involved with something that was part of organized religion. And so our aim right from the beginning was to try to create an environment that was completely open to everybody, that wasn't in any way, shape or form threatening. It wasn't a difficult environment to kind of pluck up the courage to go along to. And we wanted to create a situation in which anyone and everybody would feel welcome, where there was kind of no formalities or hierarchy, and where once somebody was through the front door and they were attending the meetings, kind of everything was on a level playing field. And people could just relax and be themselves, and it didn't matter what their background was, it didn't matter what their life circumstances were. For the time they were with us in a meeting, they were them, they were on equal footing with everybody else, and they were welcome. And it was a relaxed environment in which everybody felt free to be themselves. And that was the fundamental aim, really. And it was just an attempt on our part to make sure that it was possible for people in our location who, because at the time mindfulness was getting a lot of media exposure, and people who might think, oh, that's interesting, maybe it could be helpful for me, or yeah, I'd like to know a little bit more about that, but who didn't necessarily feel that they needed to go along to a kind of medicalized clinical environment, and who might not have been too comfortable with the idea of going along to a religious setting. The idea was to provide a third way, in a sense, a very social, welcoming environment where people could just come along in a very ordinary sense. And that's the nub of what we did.
Wow, very, very interesting, Shaun. Thank you so much. We'll come back to hear more from you about that in relation to some of the questions that we've prepared. And if there are, as I said, any questions from anybody that are participating today. But yeah, it's really serving the need that arises within the community by all means, in a very secular way, which is very accessible for everybody. Thank you so much. I'm going to move on to give Foppe an opportunity to introduce himself, and he's here as a spiritual ambassador. He represents PHA. Now, PHA is the People's Health Alliance. I'm just trying to find him on my screen here so I can add him to the spotlight. Here you go, Foppe. If you want to unmute yourself as well. the People's Health Alliance are an organic, people-led initiative who are there to educate, to empower and support people to take responsibility for their own health. And I know that you're the spiritual ambassador. Would you like to share some more about what happens at the PHA, Foppe?
Yes, I'd love to. A little bit of background of myself. I am involved in communities that started in a kibbutz in Kiryat Shmona in Israel in 1970. From then on, forming communities was my cup of tea, absolutely. I jumped now to People's Health Alliance. On the 23rd of April, 3 English ladies, 3 English women, took the initiative, took the opportunity to set up the People's Health Alliance because the National Health Service was not serving the people anymore and was actually going to collapse, and we experience that now also. Until now, we succeeded in setting up approximately 150 community health hubs in England, and more than 30 countries are copying that strategy, and not the countries, not the governments, but the people of those countries are copying that strategy in their own country. Why health? Because health, especially in this time, is the crucial point of existence. If you're not healthy, you cannot do and be active part of life. That is very important to survive. What is more important? Every element of community forming, setting up communities, is important. So the next initiative that was taken was the setting up of the People's Food and Farmers Alliance, where we bring together the farmers and the people who need and use the products of the farmers. The third one was the People's Care Alliance, because the elderly people in the care homes were very badly treated, and the families also, because they were not allowed to see each other. So in that respect, the care system in England needs change. Also, this initiative of the Food and Farmers Alliance and the Care Alliance are very much part of the setting up of the communities in other countries. And last but not least, the People's Spiritual Alliance. Why? Why is the Spiritual Alliance so important? Spirituality is the glue between every element of daily life. It is bringing us all together. Today, I had the day of the People's Spiritual Alliance in one of the communities. We were the whole day together. Holistic practitioners show what actually holistic healing is. We are doing a meditation together. We sing together. We make music together. And we love each other. Any question? Shoot.
Fantastic. It sounds like an incredible organization and how it happened organically. Thank you for sharing, and we'll definitely be coming back to you with questions, Foppe. I appreciate your presence here. And I just need to manage to find Jackie now to bring Jackie in. If I can just find her again. I had her a second ago. Bear with me. This isn't my day job. Here you go. Jackie, welcome. Thank you again, Foppe. We'll be back to you again, okay?
Yep.
Hello,
So,
everybody.
welcome, Jackie. Jackie is an incredible woman. I've also had the pleasure to meet on numerous occasions on my visits to Nottingham. And she and Claire are the faces and the hard workers behind PEC, are also known as Positively Empowered Kids. And they're an award-winning team, and they are passionate about educating and empowering the next generation. So I'll leave you, Jackie, to talk a little bit more and tell us how we could be inspired by PEC. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'll say that again. I jumped in very quickly. So Claire may hop on this call at some point. She's been out today, so hopefully she'll hop in and you'll get to see her lovely little face, my lovely partner in positivity. But yes, we are the co-founders of Positive Empowered Kids. We're a social enterprise, which you may know what it is. It's basically in between a business and a charity, but it's all non-profit, and it's to make a huge difference for us to the next generation, these wonderful children that we want to raise to be conscious, compassionate change makers, to have a voice, to be seen, to be heard, but also their emotional well-being, their spiritual well-being, to make sure that they are guided. So we kind of show them the way and help them find their own path of how to flourish and thrive. But what we recognised when we started PEC, the idea came 4 years ago when Claire and I, who both run our own businesses separate to this around the well-being of children, knew that, you know, there are us two are out there, but we're very difficult to find. We're a small business, and there are so many great people out there, and children need to find the right person for them. So what if we brought all these people together to showcase what children could do, what they could find to really, really help them to find their way. So we started a festival back in 2019, or we launched a festival, which was incredible. We had a huge amount of wellbeing professionals and different ways that children could choose to really empower them, to lift them up, to help them discover how to feel really good and how to get through and navigate the challenges that they face. We've got lots of online content. We've worked with lots of different people, and we have so much out there that on our website and on YouTube at the moment that can be accessed. But the biggest thing for us is about really making sure our children's voice is heard so we can help them. For me personally, I see children as teachers. They are here, we need to listen to them so that then we can help them find the way that's right for them. It needs to go through education, it needs to go into parenting, and that's how I've kind of raised my children. I'm a mum of 3, my oldest is 25, my youngest is 14, and by listening to them, it's taught me so much about parenting, and it's led me to be a more conscious, compassionate parent. Didn't start that way from my own journey, and that's the reason I do what I do. But if we can co-create these conscious, compassionate change makers, if we can work together, then we can make a bigger difference. Then it can ripple out through the world. We can impact the ecosystem of a child, which is the child, it's at the heart. Then you've got the family, you've got the school, the educational arena, and then you've got the community, the businesses. They all impact a child when they come into contact with them. So how can we connect with people that are doing work with parents or with businesses, etc., and make a bigger difference so that in every angle, in every part of our community or village, it takes a village to raise a child, then we can be impacting a child in a positive way. So I think that's me doing my little introduction. Thank you very much, Susie.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm going to keep an eye out for Claire. I tried to find her there, but I couldn't see her so far. But I'm sure, Claire, if you are on the call, if you raise your hand, you'll come to the top of my screen. But yeah, I've witnessed firsthand the energy that Jackie and Claire bring to their, you know, to their festivals, and it's just incredible how the whole community gets involved, and there's a sort of an incredible kind of energy about some of the projects that you've been creating there in Nottingham. Without further ado, I'll remove the spotlight now from Jackie. Sorry, and I'll bring you back again, Jackie, because we will have questions, I'm sure, and I have another question for you shortly. But I'd love to bring into the spotlight next the CEO of Charter for Compassion, who's a partner with the Feast. I see you there now, Marilyn. So I'm just going to bring you in here and invite you to unmute yourself. So we're very lucky to have Marilyn Turkovich, who's here from the Charter of Compassion. And this is a global organization, and they are involved in these global collaborative partnerships, and they bring a lot of practical action, I think, across numerous sectors from what I can understand. But no better woman herself than to give us more insight into the work of the Charter. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. As some of the others here have said, a little bit of background. In 2009, the founder of the Charter for Compassion, Karen Armstrong, who's a British theologian, was awarded the very first TED monetary prize. And her wish, besides her incredible talk that she gave for TED, was that they would help her form a charter for compassion, because she felt that the only thing left that we had as a people was compassion, that we needed to understand it, that we needed to work with it, and to begin the process of understanding what it means to move from empathy to compassion, to acts of kindness, to really transform individuals, but also communities. So the Charter has evolved to work with grassroots teams of people around the world to form a compassionate initiative or compassionate village, community, city. And as you can imagine, that's hard work. We are right now in 54 countries, and we have approximately very close to 500 communities in the world. And our job, because this is an on the ground enterprise where local people begin the process of identifying what are the hurts, what are the grave issues in a community that need to be addressed. And then they start working with building partnerships in sectors, so that those sectors are what happens just in any normal community, that there are people who are in business and education, environment, interfaith, different religions, gender partnerships, social justice, restorative justice. So those are our sectors. And so partnerships are built with people who are on the ground doing the work. And so those partners, when they become local partners, become also international partners to the Charter for Compassion, so we can rely on one another. And if there's a need in one community in the world and they might need some help to figure out what to do next, then we can look at all of our partnerships. So we have about 3,000 partners in those various sectors that I named. I'm not sure if I can share my screen, but hopefully someone will be able to let me do that. One of the ways that we kind of are able to communicate with one another is we have this fantastic map. And if I can't show it to you, I'll at least put the URL in the chat box, so that you'll be able to come to that map, but more importantly, that you'll be able to participate by putting your name in the map and naming your passions, your interests, maybe your expertise, so that if someone along the line has something that they want help with, you're there to help them, or you're there to maybe explore or to participate in a project. We have something called the Wisdom Book, which by itself is really something that every single person here, I'm sure, has a story of a project that you might have been involved in or within an organization, and I'm hearing them already. And by the way, Positively Empowered Kids are a partner to us, as is Mom. So
I've given you the co-host. If you want to share your screen, you should be able to do that.
Great. Here's the map, and we the map was started just maybe about 6 or 7 months ago, and so it's very easy, and I'll put the URL in the chat box. And to register, you just and you need to know you'll be very secure. Nobody's going to have your email address or anything like that. And we have a whole page of explanation about this. But here's your primary interest. And so, like, for example, let's say that you're really interested in, your primary interest is health, and could be healthy living or integrative children, mental health, etc. And then you can have secondary interest in all of these other areas. The wonderful thing about the map is that there's a filter. So if I go to, let's say, health again, and I can filter into health, you can see what happens is that that people who are most interested in this area the pins will be there, and you can go and find out who are they, and you can communicate with them by sending an email. So it's one way that we can kind of keep together and also build our energy one to the other. So I think I'll stop there because I could go on quite a lot like everyone else here.
Well, it's great that you managed to share your screen and show us that interactive map, Marilyn. And I know that Anne has probably put it into the chat too, so people can explore that further after the discussion. But thank you so much. What's fascinating for me is that the charter really is massive. Like it's across so many sectors. Like I think there's something for everybody in there, isn't there?
There is.
3,000 people as well globally. That's fantastic. So we'll come back to you again, Marilyn. Thank you so much. And the final panelist that I'm excited about introducing today is very well known to everybody here. She doesn't really need much invitation or introduction, should I say. And it's my dear friend and the co-director of the feast, Sue Cooper. And when Sue isn't co-directing the Feast for the Soul, she's very passionate about this co-creation of compassionate communities within her own community directly and also on a global scale. Her project is called MOM. She's the founder of MOM, which is the Moments of Mass Mindfulness. And Sue's projects have gone from mass meditations in the town square in Nottingham to, global alliances with HeartMath and numerous other organizations. So I'll stop there and I'll let Sue take up the conversation, or as she tells you more about the MOM projects. Thanks, Sue.
Thank you, Susie, and thank you, panelists, for being here and for all of us who are participating here now and watching the recording. I feel like I'm living my dream. The dream happened in 2016, which was to co-create compassionate communities and integrate holistic healing hubs. And these words came through. I wrote them down in the middle of the night, and it's manifesting. So I feel a little emotional about it. Each of the panelists here, I am very blessed to know and worked with in terms of sharing the vision, finding what each person is doing, what each organisation is doing, and then linking and then stepping out of the way for creation to happen in its own way. I was also shown in this dream that I was to set up something called Unplug Space, and US Unplug Space it was to be called, which then grew into Universal Spirituality, the U and the S, and then the US of A became evident within it, linking the USA with the UK, and then more was shown to me. So I found the 9 people that I was shown to invite, Shaun being one of them in the early days, and said, I've had this dream and I actually don't know what to do with it. And as a collective, we knew that compassion was at the centre of this, and we needed to know how people could find each other. And 2016 is only a short period ago, 7 years. And what's happened in the last 7 years is beyond anything I could ever imagine. And I think if I knew, I think I would have stayed asleep and shut the book. I'm only kidding. It's been an absolute joy and a privilege. And everything that I do is in service to humankind for no fee. And it's about the raising of individual and global consciousness through mass meditation. But the one point I'd just like to say, finalizing, is that I've been shown that we have the power of many energies supporting us. And the mass awakening is happening. We know this, we feel it, everything is pointing that way. We need to find each other in community. Now, the community being within person to person, which has a power, but also the power of coming together in this forum to find each other, so that as people awaken, they are not left kind of at the mercy of mental health services or whatever services that they're seeking. We as grassroots spiritual warriors means coming from love, will find each other, and those people will find the way to us. And the more of us that find each other in our communities, we create an energy that more people will start to feel and find their way. So what each of us are doing as panelists, and I would suggest a lot of us are doing anyway, maybe one other person, maybe a group of people, whatever it looks like. My absolute deep desire and guide is, how do we make this happen? How do we turn this dream into action? It is happening. And as each of us find each other here in this space, I mean, how yummy is this? We've still got another I don't know how many weeks to go, but certainly about another 33 days for us really to spiritualize this. So I stop now because I could go on for quite a long time.
We could listen to you all day, Sue, because you can feel it when you speak. You're really speaking from your heart, and I think that's what one of the key components of compassion is, coming from that place. That's that sacred part of your being. There's a question in the chat, as some of you may have noticed, from Tom, and he's been kind of inspired, or it's been suggested to him about starting a local compassionate community himself, and he was just looking for some advice about where would you suggest that he starts. He's talking about maybe a face-to-face group in his community. I know Tom is based in the UK, but if there is anybody would like to take that question from Tom, and just raise your hand and I'll spotlight you if you'd like to. I see Marilyn, would you like to go with that? Great.
Yeah, thank you. Tom, that's exciting. We actually have a UK group that comes together to support one another, but each of them represent what they're doing in their own locale. So Sue oftentimes comes and helps with us understanding what's happening in Nottingham and inspiring people in Oxford or in Edinburgh. Those are some of the compassionate communities that we have. The best way is to start a compassionate community is to start with a couple like-minded people who have that same passion that you have. And you begin to really communicate with one another, and to perhaps meet in a circle. And then to, from that point, begin to say, what is it that we need to do in our community to deal with issues around whatever the top issues are. If it is in Karachi, it's water sanitation, it's helping children not to understand that there's another way of relating to people other than some of the pressure that they get to join terrorist groups. In Atlanta, Georgia, because I just saw that there was somebody from Atlanta, we have a wonderful compassionate group that does extraordinary things there. Okay, so you bring this group together, but then the most important thing is that you begin to say, who is missing from this group? Are there people from different ethnic or racial groups that need to be incorporated into our group? And then you begin to build your community. And as Martin Luther King said, there is, what we need to work for is that beloved community of caring, of justice, of eliminating poverty, etc. So we have a whole section of our website, and I'll put the link in there for you, of how to build a compassionate community. And then, you know, we will connect you with the UK group, and we have all kinds of programs that we vet and we promote, so that if you want, they're there for you to take advantage of.
Tom, would you like to unmute and say anything yourself, or just let me know? You're free, you're welcome to. Thanks, Marilyn.
Mhm.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. Yeah, I've been thinking about this for a while, and it's just now I'm getting asked by people in my community. They know that I meditate. They know that I have a certain spirituality, and I get asked all sorts of different questions. But the thing that's sort of holding me back is that I'm not a professional. I'm not a professional practitioner to anything. And I did try to get in touch. Well, I did get in touch with a lady who was running a CIC. She was did Reiki, she did yoga and all sorts of stuff. But it's ended up that I think she may have finished business, and so that facility is gone. And there's an opportunity coming up shortly where there may be a room that we could use. So I belong to a 12-step recovery group, and it's through that group that I know a lot of people. And I was talking to somebody last night, and we don't want it to be a 12-step based group. We want it to be all encompassing. What Shaun was saying earlier about it including everybody, and that's the sort of thing that we'd be looking at doing. And what Marilyn just said about starting about 2 or 3 people, I've got probably 4 at the moment, that we could have our first meeting, and then think about things that Marilyn said about what's the aims, the people that are involved, and maybe where we go from there. So that's been helpful, just to listen, and I know that I'll be able to get in touch with Sue and probably Shaun. Shaun's in Nottingham. I'm in Merseyside.
I see that Shaun would like to engage with something there as well, Tom. Just not to cut you off, but go ahead, Shaun.
All I was really wanting to say, Tom, is please, please, please don't worry about not being a professional practitioner. Personal enthusiasm is probably, from my point of view, is probably the biggest criteria. And as long as you are honest and open with people about who you are and why you're doing this and what your background is, the personal enthusiasm you can bring will be the most important ingredient. And I just wanted to reassure you that, please don't let any fears about the fact that you've not got a certificate, or you're not an accredited person, or you're not a professional practitioner. As long as what you're doing is honest and open and authentic, and you're careful not to stray into any areas where professional expertise is genuinely required, you'll find that it works. You'll find that it gels, and it's the passion and the enthusiasm and the openness that matter, as far as I'm concerned. So
Thanks,
I just
Tom.
thought I would share that.
Thank you for
And
that.
and you're very welcome to get in touch with me if I can help or assist in any way. I'd be delighted.
Thanks.
Fabulous. Great job. This was the purpose of this conversation, or the session. So I'm very conscious of the time, and I see that Christine Anderson has also put in the chat that she does have a current weekly Zoom group focusing on mindfulness and meditation practices, and she's just curious about ways to broaden her impact while keeping it manageable. She's taking on board Marilyn's suggestion for sure, but maybe Jackie or Claire, if you're on the call, would you like to come in there as well, just so that we don't forget about you girls? Just about, you know, I'll just see if I can find you first. 1 second. Foppe, I see your hand up, so we'll go to you, as I have not managed to find the ladies, but I'll keep a lookout for them. Go for it. You're muted, Foppe. If you can unmute yourself, please.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Let me first say that Foppe is pronounced as Foppe. It's a Frisian Dutch name, so Frisian, indigenous of the Netherlands, and the E at the end is pronounced as Now, I fully agree with the need to motivate based upon your own passion. Passion is the drive. With passion, you can motivate other people. Next to that, I am hearing also the question of the lady Christine Anderson about the meditation group. I think there's one element very important. Why do you want to set up that community? Because I think I heard something about meditation, I think about spirituality, but what is the deeper reason? Is the deeper reason connected with actual things that are happening in the community over the whole world? Meaning the whole, I call that a theater, the SARS-CoV theater. I call it also the suppression of humanity. Or is it just based upon what you experienced in your life? Because I think we are having approximately the same age. And can you enlighten me on this point?
Would you like to unmute yourself, Christine? Let's see if I can locate you. If you would like to raise your hand, I see you there.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed. Go ahead.
Okay. I couldn't figure out where to raise my hand. I think that's a good question that you ask. What's my why? When I first started Anderson Meditation, and it is a small business, it really was rooted in providing mindfulness tools in an accessible way, similar to the way that we've been talking about, just so people can cultivate greater peace. And that really stemmed from originally my original practice to do that for myself, and in having those benefits, experiencing those myself, and being curious about to see if I could do it with others. And I have found success in that. What I'm encouraged by is this community, and Marilyn's suggestions, I think, to rely on this broader community, because also having balance in my life is important, and not, that's the easiest way to say it. So I think one of the things I'm getting from this group is to broaden my connection with other providers of mindfulness practices in other ways, so I don't feel like it's just my responsibility, and continuing to develop those partnerships with perhaps other businesses in the community to be able to do that. Am I explaining myself clearly? Does that make sense? So.
Well, I think it sounds to me like you're exploring something, and clearly being inspired by what the panelists have to share here. That they're coming from so many diverse sectors, whether it's the global or the grassroots on the ground. So I think the key that Foppe said is like where your passion lies, and that's really evident with Sue Cooper. She's so passionate about her projects. that's the driver, I think, really more so. But thanks for your question, Christine. Really appreciate that and your participation. Just from my own point of view, I'd like to say that, you know, reluctantly, I started an online meditation group myself, which is totally driven by my own passion for meditation, and which came about from COVID. And it started off as Alone Together, and we were doing online meditations every day of the week for the first couple of months of those lockdowns. But, you know, a couple of years, we're in our third year now. And I see a lot of the people that are on this, participants here, are from our Mindful Monday group. And, you know, we've really developed into this beautiful community online. Most of us have never met in the physical. And when we do get to meet, it's quite magical, because we've spent so much time together in meditation, in these practices. And that's something that really, I guess, for me personally, surprised me. How as I said to my group, there's no charge. It's just your commitment and your willingness to participate. As long as people keep showing up on a Monday, I keep showing up. You know, there's nothing else, you know, that I look for here other than people to show up. And if they're there, I'm very willing to guide a meditation. And I know Anne does something similar in Germany on her Thursdays. So, you know, I think things can happen without you even setting out to do them. You know, that's what I would suggest. Jackie, I see you have your hand up. I'd love you to come in on this.
Hello. Just take my hand down again. Don't know how to do it again. Just in terms of what Christine said, we have, you know, when we started back in 2019, as I said at the beginning, there was just myself. I connected with Claire. We became connected, you know, as friends with a real similar and very similar passion. And now at this point in time, we have over 650 of those people in a group just on Facebook that all do incredible things with young people that we can connect with, that we can co-create with, that we can talk to, explore. There's so much we can do with them. There's a lot of them in Nottingham, but we have kind of broadened that. People have come to us from different areas of the UK. We've got people, I know we've got a lady in Denmark. So, you know, it kind of pulls people once you put yourself out there and talk about what it is, what your why is. So when we're sort of talking to people in the UK, we have things like networking events, which are where businesses come together and chat about what they do and get to know each other. I don't know if that happens in the US, but there might be events online, a local event. I mean, we have Eventbrite, and you can go on to Eventbrite and search what local events are happening, and it's just like you've just done today, talking about what you're trying to do, like we did, and they come because somebody will go, I know somebody who I can connect you with. That might not be them specifically, but the more you talk about your passion, people will come to you or connect you.
That's brilliant. That's so inspiring, Jackie. Thanks for that. And I know from my own personal experience too, when Sue told me she was organizing a global mass meditation in Nottingham Town Square, like I was on the plane, you know what I mean? And I'm not from Nottingham, but to me, that's something that I'm passionate about seeing more of in the world. So, and from then on, we forged a beautiful friendship because I really want to support what she's doing. And I know she and Jackie support each other tremendously as well. So as you see, you'll kind of start to make those kind of build that network, like you said, Jackie, and it doesn't necessarily all have to be from down the road. You know, as you said, they can come from far and wide. Foppe, would you like to unmute and say something? Thanks, Jackie.
Yeah, I'd like to say something, because there's a reason why I said why. In the beginning of the lockdowns, we organized spiritual meetings. First on our own. Later on, I was asked to be independent counselor of the World Freedom Alliance and World Doctors Alliance. we started up the World Freedom Alliance Spiritual Group. My son took the admin role, my spiritual son. And we are now setting up this group in the direction of the quantum travelers, which is a higher level of spirituality. But what we did also in World Freedom Alliance is that we wanted to see what kind of phases in spiritual development people were going through. So today, during our spiritual meeting in Stoke Lacey, we had not too much, only 40, 50 people. Normally it is 70, 80, but the weather, a bit icy and a bit foggy, played a role. We talked about the spiritual roadmap. We also talked about that with the World Doctors Alliance, the World Freedom Alliance, and also with some other organizations I'm counseling in. We want to know what the different elements, the different phases are, to be able to help people in their own spiritual development. Why do I say this? And this is also crucial for all of us, as we have spirituality in the core. You have to know that the top advisor of Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum has said, and he is right, spirituality is our main enemy. Remember, I repeat it. Harari said spirituality is our main enemy. Why? Because it brings together the element of daily life. Now turn that around and say in a positive way, spirituality is the glue between every daily element of life. Good. So we're going for it. That is why we did set up the spiritual roadmap. It's going to be used in the organization I mentioned. I think if you want to work together in this, and that is another element I wanted to bring forward, in this transition time, where we are going from not aware of what is happening to a bigger awareness on what is happening in the whole world, and also in our own country, and also in our county and councils, then we have to see how we develop the better quality of life of future generations. And that is where spirituality comes in, and that is also where the ancient way of working of the indigenous peoples of the world is coming from. I'm a member of the Four World International Institute, the Institute of Indigenous Peoples, and they are working on that level as well. So I hope that I gave a little bit of direction.
Well, definitely food for thought by all means. Spirituality is the glue. And I think, you know, you said it too about the upcoming generations. It's the next generations who, you know, who we really need to nurture and nourish and, you know, and help them, because I know had I learned to meditate at a younger age, it would definitely have saved me an awful lot of stuff that I went through in my 20s and 30s. So I'm just going to move on again to Sue, if she would like to come in, Sue, because I think you probably have something you'd like to add. The question that I was going to bring up was, like, what does it take to create? We know the whys now and we have the passion, but Sue, what would you say is what does it take to create that compassionate community? And I think you have probably a lot to say on that.
Thank you. I will keep it brief because I'm conscious of the time. But the passion, and it's I believe it's a calling. We are called in to bring ourselves firstly into alignment, and it has to start with bringing ourselves into alignment. And this is why the work that we're all doing individually and collectively is crucial. And when we've brought ourselves into alignment, mind, body, emotion, spirit, and meditation and spirituality, as Foppe said, is the glue for this. we then can expand out into other, and that's others who are relational to us. It could be very close, or it could be people in the street, or it could be people that you bump into. But once you've started to spiritualize yourself, I will guarantee that people will say, what is it that you've got, and why are you so happy and chipper? And it sounds random, but I think we all know that this to be the case starts with self-care. It starts with finding others naturally, because we are drawn to people through the universal forces who are also seeking the same. Our place is important. You know, the ecological part of life is paramount for us to address, because Mother Earth is our home, and our human nature matches the rhythms of nature. And it's New Moon Day. I mean, how wonderful is this to have this beautiful conversation on a new moon in Aquarius, and then reach out, be that listening ear, be that person who speaks. And if I could just give you one example briefly, when I was looking to hold this mass meditation and holistic wellbeing day in the city centre, it's not a place where you'd naturally go and meditate, because the market square in the city centre, you know, on a Saturday, and it's football, major English football, doesn't lend itself, but it did on that particular day. So I was in the market square looking as what does this look like, and leaning against a stone lion, because we've got two lions, the left lion and the right lion, and everybody meets at the left lion. There was a man who, it turns out, goes to Shaun's group, who recognised me because I'm an ambassador for Shaun's group. And he was stood with a placard, and it just said hashtag, and it had the placard was on a long stick, and it was just a cardboard cutout saying, I'm listening. And he stood there quietly. And I went up to him. He moved me so much, because people were coming up to him and saying, what's this about? And he said, I'm listening. Would you like to share anything? And then he stood there most of the day, because I kept going back and seeing, and people gathered around him. Some were wanting to talk to him. Others were listening. Some people teased him. Whatever occurred, he laughed, and he stood and said, how can I help? How can I serve? And this is what is still in my heart. I believe it's in all our hearts, and that's why we're here. So it's being kind to ourselves first, and the rest will follow. Keep coming back to the feast.
Absolutely.
Find the people who are on the panel who are active, very active in community. And again, we're meeting Queen's Nurses on Thursday. That's another talk which is free after the meditation on Thursday, who are creating compassionate communities, and have done through spiritual leadership. So we do this gently, and we do this gradually. So I'll stop.
No, I don't mean to interrupt you.
That's fine.
I love what you have to say, and you know, it is about starting with yourself, and that, you know, commitment to radical self-care, you know, before we even step out of the house. Which is why we wouldn't start our day without doing our own personal practice. I see that Baldit has a question there. She was wondering if you could explain why Schwab said what he said. And I know Mariana touched on it. She said how people can find each other is key. So true that spirituality is not only the problem for so many reasons, and that it is the essential glue. Would you like to comment on that, Foppe? About the what Schwab said. Go ahead. Just briefly, we're wrapping up now, but I just said I'd
very brief. I used to be a diplomat, and I did special assignments. So we have quite a network, and we get inside information. That is why we know what he said, and why Harari was quoted to us. Finding people. By now, people have the need to fill in their healthcare. And they don't know how to go around with NHS anymore. At this moment, the hospitals are full. The always jabbed people with side effects. And the ambulances are waiting in the street. People have 7 to 8 hours waiting time. And the GPs are not taking any calls anymore. I'm exaggerating there, mainly not. So in that respect, that is a drive in the people. And we want to help the people. And we do that also me. I'm doing that every day. I'm getting requests for help for practitioners or directions or who to call, etc. And we try to help the people as best as we can. Is that the good answer? I think it's the best that I can say.
That's great. And you know, check out more online about the People's Health Alliance. And you know, it's all about educating ourselves and just doing that research and finding out what else is there and what else and keep asking and, you know, demanding it maybe, you know. You say a very important point. I have to say that education, the World Freedom Alliance made an educational charter. PHA is working on having People's Education Alliance. It is very important. Brilliant. Well said. Thank you for your participation today. To all of our incredible panelists, I really, really appreciate your time on, you know, it's your weekend too. I get that. And I really appreciate everybody who stayed on the call. You know, I just want to say to Sue that Bev Swanson said that your story brought her to tears and she's really grateful. So, you know, there's a lot of takeaways here and, you know, there's more coming, as Anne said. You know, we have Sue is going to host the Nurse of the Year, Alison Bunce from the UK, after the meditation on Thursday. Again, a free event, and put everything into the chat there if you'd like to participate in that discussion or listen to it at least, and it will be recorded. And I just will point out as well that Kathleen from Unity Awareness Oneness has put in some contact information there because her husband holds meditation circles. And you know, we're just planting seeds today and we're hoping to inspire you. We're passionate, and that's why we're all volunteering at the Feast for the Soul, you know. So thank you all sincerely. I want to thank, you know, Marilyn Turkovich. I want to thank Sue Cooper and Vetter in the back there, Foppe from PHA, and the beautiful Jackie and Claire from Positively Empowered Kids, and Shaun Glossop from Nottingham Mindfulness Group. Everybody has really offered something special here, and I think these discussions will probably have to continue through the feast. So thank you so much. We'll stop the recording at this point now. Whoever's doing